The next generation of great Catholic podcasting is here. This is what your brain has been waiting for. Topics that come up around the dinner table will be given the truth treatment, all from a Catholic perspective. Sit back, relax, grab your cup of coffee, and enjoy the show. You've just joined Monday Mornings with Matt and Kevin.
Very happy Monday morning to you all, and I'm actually very genuinely happy to be joined by my co-host Matt. I mean, it's amazing.
Finally.
Man, it's seriously been. We were talking before the show. It's like it's been over 6 weeks, I think, since our last show together, which is it's kind of shameful. You know, we have a show with our names on it, and we haven't been on together for a long time, and I've missed it. I very genuinely have missed it. It's really fun. I always enjoy our shows together where we talk about really all sorts of things in politics, what's going on in the world, society, faith, saints. And I think that's what I enjoy, is that we touch on all sorts of things. And I know, again, some people don't like the politics. Some people don't like the society stuff. Some people don't like philosophy or saints. And you know what? That's okay. You don't always have to like every single segment. And that's how it's going to be. So we hope that you generally like what we talk about and our general opinions, and that you stick around and you come back for next week. And today, Matt, we've talked a little bit about it, as we tend to do, kind of, a couple minutes, like, hey, what should we talk about today? And sometimes it's like, I don't know, and sometimes we have great ideas. And I've already covered, I don't know, Matt, if you've seen the show I did about the Israel-Palestine issue. I covered that with Father McKenna. Very good. Father had a very in-depth response to that. I don't think we really need to cover that after I did that with him. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about I guess, my trip, but there's not honestly that much to say. I think people generally don't really want to hear about other people's vacations. They're just kind of like, okay, that's nice, Kevin. I mean, I would say, it was really nice. And again, I think I've mentioned this in the past, that it's the way we do our vacations now, or we try to, is really focus them around, first of all, finding somewhere where there's a traditional mass. And secondly, to try to do it so it's like a Catholic vacation. So there's obviously you relax and you see, cities and stuff, but you also get to see saints. I mean, I live in the middle of Europe, where it's just amazing. Matt, it's incredible. We did a 14-day vacation, and we saw six incorruptible saints, or was it 6 saints total? Now I have to think about it. I think it was 6 incorruptible saints. I just amazing. I think 8 total saints in our 10 or 14 days, and that was going down through Tuscany, pretty much through the heart of Italy. And that's just an incredible thing that I'm fortunate enough to be able to experience. And the thing, though, that I'd like to mention, I think, again, I've mentioned this before, is that we went to mass down in a tiny little Italian town called Loro Cufena. And there was a mass once a month from a priest from the IMBC. It's actually where he grew up.
Yes.
And a very nice little house, a very nice little chapel. And just such a nice priest. And it's just something that it strikes me again. And I've been off Twitter for a long time, so I'm not even part of these wars anymore between the trad groups. But it just strikes me that I've been to quite a few of these IMBC masses, and every single time, the priests and the people are just amazingly nice. They don't care. They've asked me where do I usually attend, and I say I attend with Father Heine of the CMRI, and they're like, great, and they're super nice, and they're great, and they're great priests, and they have the traditional mass, and they have, I think, probably good sermons. They're in Italian, so I can't say, but I'm pretty sure they seem really good. But my point being is that, again, and I know we've talked about this before, but we get so into these we don't agree with them on everything, and then you know what? I go and I meet them, and it's like they're great priests, 100%. And they're great chapels, great parishes, great people.
A lot of people, Kev, I was thinking about this week, actually, so it's kind of funny that you brought it up, because in a different way it was on my mind. I feel like a lot of people who have a lot of closed mind, if I can use that term, closed-minded opinions on the timeline, have never actually gone out there and associated with people, because it's a very, very, very different feel. In fact, I remember even with the SSPX, there was this kind of I can't think of the word I want to use here, but there was this pre-notion, I guess you could say, of what these people are supposed to be like, and then you meet them and it's like, oh, they're actually not so angry and hateful and calling everyone a wicked name. They're actually pretty hospitable and whatnot. And the same goes for a lot of things on Twitter. People are so trigger happy behind their keyboards, that if you were having this conversation face to face with somebody, you find you're suddenly so much more respectful, willing to listen to other people's input and what they might have to offer. And so, yeah, when you really get out there and actually deal with physical people face to face, you're like, wow, like I've done this myself. I've thought like, wow, I'm really like, maybe harsher on Twitter, or you say things that you feel like you might not say to somebody face to face. And we should try to balance that, right? Who we are in social media, I feel like, should be who we are in person. But yeah, your point was totally spot on. Like, a lot of these people who have a lot of these really closed opinions that they just shoot out there all the time online. Have you ever really gone out and sat with these people and talked with them, and you experienced it, and I have too, and it's very, very eye-opening. It's good.
Well, I wonder sometimes if people online just make things up sometimes, because I mean, like again, I've had people say, yeah, the IMBC really they don't like people from the CMRI. Someone told me that, like really? Actually said that actual, like, that exact thing. And I've been to, I mean, 5 or 6 different parishes with different priests, and they've been unbelievably kind to me. So it's just like, these things, again, I think everyone needs to understand it exactly as you say, Matt. There's a real world, and then there's the Twitter world or the Facebook world or whatever you want to call it, and they're totally separate. I think that's a really, really important point to remember. But yeah, other than that, Matt, I mean,
well, I'm going to shoot this other guy. That The Simpsons predicted that the internet is going to go out. You didn't see this?
No, I didn't see.
Oh, they didn't. It's a recent Simpsons. So you know how there's this whole thing with the Simpsons.
Oh yeah.
You have a whole montage of what they've accurately predicted. There's a new one, and I don't remember exactly, but they're in their house or whatever, and something happens, and the internet goes out, and they now live in an internetless, cell phoneless world. And people are a little apprehensive, because they're like, oh man, is this coming? Like, you've learned that whatever they put out there on their shows tends to turn into reality. And so, hey, we might be facing it. Who knows? They're fairly accurate. It had me a little worried.
Well, and in some ways, obviously, it'd be sad. We'd miss our online friends and our shows and our Twitter and our Facebook. But in the long run, it's probably better for everyone if the internet goes out, to be honest. Now, I know that would affect the world in many different ways, but as again, we've talked about many times in the show, consumerism, globalism, etc., are really, really evils of the world. I mean, I'm really convinced of that if we were more localized, if we were more focused on buying locally and supporting local businesses, etc., things would just be better. You'd actually immediately help the actual market, or the market that you actually want to help. But again, I guess that's a whole nother story. And it just, for some reason, I just had to mention this, Matt. You brought up The Simpsons, and for some reason it came to mind. There's friends of ours, they're getting married soon, and I looked on their registry, and it's really funny, like their wedding gift registry, and so you see all these typical things, and you see nice silverware and pictures and things that clearly the wife selected. And and you're going through it, and there's probably about 20 things on the list, and there's a marble bust of Donald Trump, and someone already bought it for us.
Really?
It was, and I think it was probably I'm sure it was just a gag. I'm sure it was just one of these things like, ha ha ha. Okay, yeah, sure, I'll put something on the registry. And someone got it for him. So I'm sorry, I had to mention that. And props to
how much it was.
It was decently expensive. It was over $45, I think. It was actually a pretty legit thing. And I certainly hope I'm going to visit them, and I certainly hope that it's very prominent on their fireplace.
Yes, right next to their candles or something.
It struck me when I saw that. That's a major respect. I'm not even a big Trump fan, but big respect. And I guess that's somewhat of a good segue. We don't want to talk too much about politics right now, or ever really, but it is fairly interesting what's going on right now in the House. That they just can't really find a speaker.
So first time ever. This has never happened in U.S. history, where a sitting speaker has been ousted. And like we were saying briefly before we started recording, Kev, first time ever. And I think the whole thing here is to disrupt the mindset of next in line, right? We've had a whole, well, it's your time now, it's your turn and whatnot. And I feel like a lot of that is kind of disrupted with this motion that I think Gates started. So he put forward a motion to remove the speaker, and it passed, and I don't know how many people expected it to pass, but it passed. And now we have had these a few candidates come forward and throw their name into the ring, like, yeah, hey, I'd like a run at this, and then they have to secure 217. That is the number to be elected, and they're failing to do so. So it looks like after a few rounds of voting, if they're not able to lock in that number, they kind of pull their name away, and they're like, all right, let's go with somebody else. And so we've had a few, it might have been two. And I hate, as I said earlier as well, I hate these terms, but more so moderate men kind of take a shot at it. I guess now the name being voted on for the next few days is Jim Jordan, which I think he's more so a, I guess you could say a darling of the far right, MAGA, patriot, pro nationalist kind of group. And I think he would be an interesting voice. I don't know how much I would agree with him or support him, but I think he would be somewhat different of the names that the Republicans have put forward or even housed in the last few decades, right? John Boehner, Paul Ryan, these kind of like middle grounds who seemingly they can't do what Nancy Pelosi did. They're a lot softer, I just feel like. And so Jim Jordan seems to have a bit more of that fire and a bit more of that go get him about him. Is he expected to get the 217? From what I heard, people are not sure. It's very, very split. But then there's the other side of it too, where they feel like these moderates that are being put forward. I think Steve Scalise was the last one. 20 or so hardline Republicans are not voting for that, and they've made it clear they're not voting for that. So there's just it seems like there's no solution here. They can't come together. What they can do, and we mentioned this, is they can bring in anybody who they could elect anybody they want. You don't have to be. It might be me, Kev. I might not be on next week because I was somehow chosen.
Nice.
It could be anybody. So names thrown out there. Trump, of course, he actually said he would do it until they were able to elect a more stable voice. But he said he would hold the fort. Newt Gingrich, who was speaker, I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say 97, 98, 99-ish, those Clinton years, ended the Clinton years, or maybe earlier, now that I think about it. But his name is in the ring. And a few others who I can't think of really, but it's wide open right now. And I think, I do think, like I said, this is a little bit of a disruption to it's my turn. I've served 20 years. And I think bringing somebody from the outside would be a big slap in the face for that. So that's kind of my support. I mean, I really don't have a full opinion on this. I think no matter what happens, it's just going to be the same old, here we go again. You don't really ever see or feel much change. But I think somebody from the outside would be a nice shakeup. Maybe even someone with really little to no experience suddenly having control over the House. So do you have any thoughts? Like, do you support it out? I mean, what do you think?
Totally. I think as you say, at least you're starting to see a little bit of change. I mean, it's the first time it's ever happened. And I think that's a plus. I mean, it's one of those things when you start looking at a world and at a country where you've been doing the same thing for the last at least 60, 70 years, and it hasn't worked. I mean, almost ever. I mean, you've had a couple good runs. I mean, one of them being at least partway through Trump. If you like him or not, it was partly good. Reagan was partly good. I mean, there were times where the economy boomed and things were going well, and that's undoubtable. And part of it is because of the American spirit and the American work ethic, like they have in Germany. But eventually, you have to start asking, okay, should we just try something different? I mean, I think it's an interesting question. It's never going to happen, obviously. But I mean, eventually, should you just say, hey, should we just blow it up and become a monarchy? I mean, why not? And the Feast of Christ the King is coming up soon. And I think that's in the end, I think we both know that, Matt, right? Nothing's ever going to work. You're never going to have a truly successful system if they don't have Christ as King. It's just that simple.
The only thing is, though, and I forget who I was listening to because he was talking about this. He was like, is it time to try a new form of government here? And he throughout the monarchy. But the thing with that is, and I don't fully comprehend, I guess maybe a lot of the inner workings of it, but the point that he was making was a monarch isn't elected like a president is. Usually a monarch is blood. Usually a monarch has a connection or a trace with royal blood from the past. So it's not like you can say, oh, they're from the House of Windsor, or they're from the House of Tudor. America doesn't have anybody to crown king.
Kennedys would be the closest.
No, Robert, I guess he might. I heard Bobby Kennedy Jr. might run independently, and I don't know if he would actually do that.
He's going to. That's a good topic on his. Oh yeah, I think he announced it, and I think he's going to run as an independent. And I think it's worse for Trump than it is for Biden. I think that's a.
Oh, you do?
I do. I think that's worse, even though he was running as a Democrat. That's interesting. That's like my dad thinks that too. But I think that RFK is going to take more voters away from Trump because he he is anti-establishment, like Trump, while Biden, of course, is purely establishment. So Biden's going to get his votes. So the question is, who is RFK going to pull from? And I don't think he's going to pull from the Democrat base. I think he's going to pull from the Republican base.
Maybe he'll do both.
Could.
He probably will.
Could.
He probably will have a lot of split
Yeah.
on both sides. I just feel like, numbers wise, I think Biden's approval rating and popularity is fairly low. I think people are concerned about his age. They're concerned about his cognitive abilities, which I don't know why anybody would think that, but
solid as a rock.
Yeah, the guy's like a laser out there. But I don't know. I feel like there'd be a lot of Democrats who would not be happy with Biden seeking a second term, and they would turn to Kennedy. Now, Republicans too, but I think a lot of Republicans have their anti-establishment candidate in Trump. I don't know if they would pull to Kennedy. I don't know, especially because he is fairly liberal on a lot of other issues, whereas Trump might not be. So I don't know. I think I'm not sure it would actually go, but it would be. I don't know. Maybe he would. It would never happen where he would be enough to win, but maybe we would have our first independent candidate ever, because it's always, as we said, it's always the same two parties. My pick one.
Right. Well, my guess is that he's going to eventually probably look for a position in Trump's cabinet. That seems to me the most likely, and so he's just trying to leverage his position. I don't think he thinks he can actually beat Trump or Biden. Maybe he does. But I bet you he's trying to leverage himself into a position of, I don't know, Secretary of State. I don't know, something big. And honestly, I don't love his politics, but I do like that he brings something different to the table than he's brought forward Democrat. Yes. I mean, that's something at least.
He has brought into the conversation some uncomfortable truths that people don't like talking about, and he's not afraid to say it. And I think we'll see where it goes. And I think the Republicans had a second debate recently. I didn't even watch other than really highlights, but I don't know. Nobody there really sticks out to me. I thought, as I was talking with Nick, how long ago was it?
Eric.
A few weeks. Eric. I did that again.
Nick.
Eric. Where was I going with this? Yeah, nobody really stood out there to me at all. I feel like Vivek was interesting. I think he's maybe a smart guy, but I don't see any presidential qualities in him. I mean, he might be somebody who might be a good cabinet guy and offer his advice or suggestions otherwise, but I think he got ran over last time from what I kind of got from it. I think people were hard on him. They pushed back a lot harder than they did the first time on him, and he didn't really respond that well. He just kind of let himself get walked on over. And
I think of it this way, Matt. I mean, it's obviously not the smartest people who are getting elected. I mean, it's the people. Right. And Biden won. I better be careful what I say because I'll get kicked off YouTube. But I mean, Biden won because, well, he didn't win. But anyway, Trump won because Trump. He wasn't the smartest. He's not the best candidate. He's not the best politician. Trump is just a bully. Trump is the biggest personality up there, and that is what wins
People
now.
Loved it.
It's clicks. It's personality. It's like Trump's. When Trump said, when I forget what Hillary said. Hillary said something. He's like, because you'll be in
laws of this country.
You'll be in prison, and it's like, and that won him. That won it. Because of his vulgarity. That's why he wins it, which is, it's pretty sad. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I know I brought this up before, but it was really for most of us the first time where you had all of these senators and governors and congressmen and first ladies and whatever else they all were up there. It was really the first time that an outsider came in and looked at all of them and said to their face what so many of us think from our couches. And I think
you should be in prison.
Right. With Jeb Bush saying that his mother's a strong woman. He said, she should be running. He threw it out there at them, which so many of us just it resonated with a lot of people. Yeah. Because as you said, it was we don't have access to these people, right? We don't have access to the hierarchs who run this country, and he kind of got in there and said a lot to their faces that people found hilarious. The Rosie O'Donnell thing, really, that was the very first, his first comment, and he just bullied his way through that, and people thought it was funny, and he made a name for himself even more than his name was. But
well, think of it this way.
He wrote it in.
Think of it this way. I mean, back in the day, so you mentioned the monarchy and how it was through blood, but that was really only since the Renaissance or the late medieval times. But in the previous times, it was really through conquest. I mean, you became king because you won
You
the
killed-
battles.
right,
You killed
yes.
everyone else, or you
slaughtered
were the one
everybody.
who deserved to be the king or the chieftain or whatever. And if you think about it, I'm not saying that's the best way. I'm not saying war is obviously good. Of course not. But I mean, it's an interesting thing when you think, okay, back in those days, it was the best warrior, the person with the best strength, actual leadership skills who can go and defeat people through his intelligence and through his strength of arms.
Right.
And now it's literally just
Battle
someone,
strategy.
and then then it changed, say with Woodrow Wilson, he was the famous one who changed it to those who could, speak the best speakers. And that's what he wanted to
Yes.
really change. So it was like, you don't even need to be a intelligent person. You just need to be able to speak well.
Rally the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then it went farther from that, where it became like Trump, where it's like, you just need to make people laugh. You need to be the best meme. You need to be
Yes.
the best, the person who makes us feel the most like, hey, I actually kind of like you. And how crazy is that, man? I mean, and real serious question: would you rather someone like Trump or someone like who's? I'm trying to think of a good example of a warrior king. I mean, I guess Frederick Barbarossa. Someone like that who was just they just went around and conquered people. I mean, which one's better? I don't actually know.
I mean, yeah, that is tough, and I feel like you wouldn't want someone to impose. And I think we've talked about this before as well. You wouldn't want somebody to impose something that would be evil, right? So if we
Right.
create this absolute monarch that has full reign and power, what if they were to use the full weight of their throne to outlaw Catholicism, right?
Which has happened.
Which has happened.
Of course.
So in a certain sense, that freedom of religion that exists in our country allows for that here. So because you wouldn't want something that would outlaw, say, would we believe here to be in full power. So you're right. That is I would have to think about that before I.
But if you think about that, the odds of so maybe you would your great warrior king would come in and would be anti-Catholic. That is certainly possible, or they'd be great Catholic. But I think that the fallacy is thinking that the people are more likely to elect someone better than a conqueror. I think that's the idea of democracy. The people will elect what is best. People are so dumb. That people these days, they can barely say that a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. And that's actually, I'm going to segue real quickly. And this is not a topic I want to dwell on too much. I didn't actually prepare you for this one, but we were on holiday in Tuscany, and so we stayed at this nice flat up on the top of a mountain. And we were there with a couple families that were in separate houses, but we shared the same area, kind of. And this other family had two little boys, and one little boy, was a normal little boy dressed in boy clothes, etc. And the other little boy, well, dressed in dresses and skirts, and they tried to call him by nicknames that were not his actual name, etc. So they pretty much were pretending that this little boy was a little girl. Now, I know for a fact it was a little boy because I saw him getting into a pool without any clothes on. So it was a boy. Factually, objectively, it was a boy. And they were putting him in dresses. And it was something that really struck me because the parents seemed plenty nice. They were plenty polite. They weren't rude to me or anything. They were, there was nothing to dislike about them. But the one thing that struck me, and I'm going to probably get in trouble for this, was that to me, it seemed very clear that the wife wore the pants in the family. She was the one making the decisions. The husband was just kind of listening, kind of da 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 da. Yeah, okay, whatever you say, honey. And I think, and I'm not saying that's all the issues you get with this transgender stuff, but I think it's pretty frequent that you see this transgenderism comes often from feminism. Now, we don't have to dwell too much on this, but it was something that struck me on the vacation, and I want to get your thoughts if you have any.
And so, how old do you think? How about they were?
He was the boy was about 4, probably.
And he was putting on dresses. That
I assume his mother was putting dresses on him. But
him.
He was wearing dresses.
It makes me wonder though, because I have seen some things come out. How many? They say, well, my son or my daughter is this or that, but sometimes I feel like from what I've seen, it's actually the parents have decided. It has nothing
Yes.
really to do with the
Yeah.
kids. The
Yep.
parent says you're going to actually do this instead of that,
That's exactly
and the
right.
kid's like, okay, all right. They don't know how they don't really know any better. Go ahead. You're gonna.
I just gonna and you get this, and you just reminded me, and that this, I think you're exactly right, and so clearly, the parents, from whatever reason, think that their boy needs to be a girl, and it struck me, and this is absolutely true. While we were there, this little boy, 4 years old or so, was crawling around pretending to be a cat. He's a
Sure.
little boy. It's
Sure.
fine. I mean, the little boys pretend to be all sorts of things. My daughter was pretending to be a cat the other day too.
Of
That's
course.
totally normal, totally natural. They pretend to be things because they're little, and that's just how their imagination works.
Imagination. Yes.
And Matt, it struck me at the time. I was like, so why aren't they putting him in fur? Well, why aren't they having him lick his paws? Why aren't they giving him a dish of milk? I mean, really serious. I mean, this is how silly and ridiculous this is. And again, Matt, what's the scary thing was that these people seemed normal.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they seem normal.
Yeah. And actually, I was thinking too. I did see this somewhere, and I don't know where I might have seen it, but there was someone who, as an adult, said that he identified as a cat, and
No.
and whatever he was, wherever he was, they had to make an accommodation that he can have a litter box with him. And that is a real thing. Now, I don't know if you Google it, if it's going to come up.
Oh my goodness.
But it was a conversation that I had a few months ago, and that was the thing. I also think that some parents, they're set on a gender, right? I want to have a
Yeah.
son. I want to have
Yeah.
a son. I want to have a son. They have a daughter, and they're like, I got to do something about this.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's forced in a lot.
I think it's a mental illness. Not from the child, not in this case. I mean, as a 4-year-old, that's it. No way.
You're gonna
He seemed like
play, right?
he was a normal little 4-year-old who was playing. Yeah, he was playing with his toys and playing as a cat. I mean, that is mental illness from the parents' perspective. And I mean, and it just makes you wonder. It's like, where does that come from? Is it societal? Is it something that is, that you think you need to? Is it something that you think you wanted a girl and it actually was a boy? I mean, whatever it is, it's clearly it's deranged. It's unbelievably sick, and it just blows me away because otherwise, I mean, really, honestly, Matt, if I hadn't seen him take off all of his clothes, I would have thought he was a little girl. I wouldn't have known, Matt. I would not have known. They were a pretty normal family. They treated the little boy like a little girl, called him, little girl name or kind of little nickname, and I wouldn't have known. And then that's what really blew me away. I saw it. I was like, okay, well, that's not a girl. Whoa. And my daughter, and this is one of these hard things, boy, when you start having little kids, she asked me, I said something like, oh, the two little boys are probably coming to the pool. And she's like, there aren't two little boys. Like, yeah, there's two little boys. And she's like, no, there's one little boy. The other one wears dresses, and that's not, little boys don't wear dresses. And it's like, okay, how do I explain this? And I think I said something like, they're just being kind of silly. I mean, my daughter's 3, so it's like, you can't really explain it that much. So they're being kind of silly, but it's like, I mean, Matt, what kind of world do we live in, man? I mean, it's just crazy.
And it's hard because you don't want to shelter your kids, or you don't want to lock them in a closet and say never look outside the window ever.
Right.
But there are also things that that have to be faced and have to be dealt with and have a conversation with, and really kind of, and it's tough. It's a big responsibility, to lead them and to guide them and to help form their conscience in accordance with our faith. It's a lot of, it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think I forget which saint said this, but at their judgment, parents have to answer for the faith of their children. Like, I forget who said that, but I was like, wow, that's a big responsibility. So
especially in today's world. Yeah. In a world where truth is lies and lies is truth. I mean, it is a very difficult time. And I think that's a good reminder for everyone to pray for parents. I mean, I think that's that's something that we often forget, and it is, one of the most important, vocations there is, okay, priesthood, obviously too, and being a sister, etc. But being a parent where you are raising these children and trying to navigate them the best you can through a world that is just crazy. It's just insane. It's a tough job, and we definitely do need your prayers. I know every parent out there is nodding their head saying, yes, please, we definitely need your prayers, because it's absolutely nuts. And it's well, yeah, no. And I think, it's one of those things too, though, that you hope that you have the right answer, and you hope that you can have these things, and you hope that your children can understand the truth. And that's why, part of why we did our best to see as many tombs of saints as we could, to obviously pray the daily rosary, and to spend our time living a Catholic vacation. And I think those are the things that impress children. Hey, children, we're going away from our home and away from our work. And in that time, we're spending a lot of it living our faith as best as we can and visiting the tombs of the saints. And I know not everyone, people in America, you don't have that same thing, but do what you can, at least do the best you can to try to, really impress on your children. Hey, there's a lot of craziness, but we're not crazy. We have the truth.
Right. And you're incorporating that in your, as part of their daily lives, right? Like they're going on vacation and they still see that their vacations, that their time away from home is still filled with Catholicity.
Right.
Because it's a part of who we are. And that's good, having that exposure. And you're right. We don't have that here. We don't have, it's funny because I remember this was, maybe 2015, 2016. I was talking to a friend who the family happened to live in Italy. And I came across this church here near one of the cities that I was traveling through, and I was like, wow, I came across this really, really, really old church. Like it's magnificent. I went inside and I toured it and I took pictures of it, and I was like, it says here on the outside wall that this church was built in 1865, and I was like, and then but the funny thing is like this it was I was speaking with one of the women in the group from Italy, and she was like, you call that old? Like that was the thing.
Yeah.
She was like, really? It's like new to us. And it's like, wow, that really made me think then, because you start looking at history and you see these churches built in 1200, 1100,
400, Matt.
400.
There was one in Rome that was, I think the earliest one we saw was, I think it was maybe it was 500 something, but I mean it's like 1500 years old. It's wild.
There's a video that's been going around. The doors in St. John Lateran in Rome are they're 2,000 years old, and Julius Caesar walked through those doors, and they're intact. They're the same. They moved. They're not in their original location, but I think it was Pope Alexander in the year 1600 or something requested that they be moved from wherever they were to Rome. But you look at those and it's like, wow, over 2,000 years old, incredible doors. But really quick, I'm speaking of a little Catholicity here. How about Bishop Tissier de Malloret of the SSPX held SSPX, and this is very fascinating to me, held SSPX confirmations in a Novus Ordo church in Florida with the local quote unquote bishop's blessing. This has stirred a lot of the hearts of the society of the Lefebvres here, and there are people who are using it for both ways. There are a few I've seen who have said like, "Oh, look, we are in full communion. We're not schismatic. We are with the Pope. We are, we're not these evil heretical schismatics." And you have others that are really resorting to Lefebvre and what he has said, and it's like, well, wait. Do we share the same faith as these people? Are we in communion with them? We don't want to be, right? You hear them say, I am not in union with this conciliar church, which Lefebvre said most repetitively. This has really split a lot of people. And one Twitter account, it was like, imagine you go to the SSPX just to stay away from all of this conciliar stuff, and you seek to get confirmed, and they do it in a local Novus Ordo church with a Novus Ordo bishop giving his permission for us to be there. I feel like this kind of came after that. Novus Ordo watched a great show on it. I forget his name now. But the holy oils, the SSPX turned to a Novus Ordo bishop to consecrate holy. Who knows where those are now.
Yeah.
Right. And there's really an intertwining here. As the Novus Ordo Church led with Francis here seems to have this ridiculous synod going on, the SSPX seem to be marrying it maybe more and more than we've seen in quite some time. I don't really know. I mean, so if you were SSPX, Kev, if you were in that group, what would you think here? Would you say like, oh yeah, like look, this is proof that we are not schismatics, or would this be eye opening for you? I know you were never in this group, but what do you think
I did, I did attend mass for a year at SSPX, so I wouldn't say I was a member of them, but I did go to SSPX, so I do know the issues there. But I also know that when I was there, and I was a young teenager, I think I was 14 or 15, and I remember walking in and seeing a picture of it must have been Ratzinger at the time, and just being like, wait, that's weird, just like, even, I mean, I had not had my theology training, that I got in high school, or philosophy, so it was kind of just like okay, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I guess it didn't really strike me. I'm sure we talked to our parents, and they're like, yeah, it's not good, but they're just kind of confused, but I think as it's one of those things, as time goes along, I think you just have to eventually start saying, okay, wait, well, what is it? Are we? Wait a second. Are we our own thing? Are we actually? We call them Lefebvrists. It's like, I mean, was he our savior? I mean, did he start a new religion? Did he? And I just recently spoke with a priest in Italy who knew Archbishop Lefebvre and regards him highly in many ways. And it makes it so you see the nuance of it. It's a very nuanced situation. And he was a nuanced man, and he was flawed. But it's not as simple as just like, oh, he's the devil. It's just not. But their situation now, it's like, okay, well, yeah, as we talked about it many times, is it the church?
4 years later, right?
Is it the church or is it not the church? And if it's not the church, then do you want to be part of it or not? Or is it, if it is the church, do you want to be part of it or not? It really is that simple, man. I think eventually they just have to make it as confusing as possible. They have to ask as many questions as possible rather than just basically, okay, is the conciliar church Catholic or not? And if it isn't, are we part of it or not? If it is, are we part of it or not? That's it. That's it, Matt. I mean, we as Sede Vacantes just say they're not the Catholic Church, so we're not part of it. End.
Right.
The SSPX says they are, and we kinda yes, no, Ness. Yeah.
And I think he himself, the Archbishop, he wasn't sure, because you can read, and I know Father Cicada made a lot of good videos. I think he kind of preached both sides of the issue. I have talked with men who were in the seminary back then who said that no, Lefebvre did not tolerate saying that who would have been at the time, maybe Paul VI wasn't the Pope or whatever, or JP2. And then I have talked to other people who were there, and they say yes, he did. He allowed us to hold that belief privately. I don't know. Are people lying? I doubt it, but I think he might have said different things to different people because he wasn't sure. And I could put myself back there and say that I can see how this can be difficult. But then you have men like Archbishop Tuck, who did what Lefebvre didn't and couldn't do, right? So,
but Archbishop Lefebvre also did the consecration of the bishops, which clearly, as again this priest kind of said, hey, this should show that he said, okay, yep, fine, you no longer have the ability to tell me what I can and can't do because you're not the church. And that's a big deal. And I think we need to remember that. And again, I'm not saying every decision he made after that was good. I don't know. I don't even want to judge it. That's way beyond me. But we do have to say he did that. He did those consecrations, which put him in threat of excommunication, which I think they did actually excommunicate him. And I mean, that's not a small thing. That wasn't just him like, oh, la, 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 I'm just going to do this. And nobody can. No, he knew that he could only do that. He could only consecrate those bishops if he didn't any longer need a papal mandate or couldn't get a papal mandate because he wasn't the Pope. That's just the case, man. And I mean, again, what his decisions were after that or what he said to people, I can't say. I really can't. But that decision, to me, speaks very strongly. And it speaks very strongly for me that he was more of a hero than a villain. And I think, to me, that's how he will remain. And I mean, until someone proves me otherwise. But again, this is not a show about Archbishop Lefebvre, but it is right. About, the position. It just shows, again, as the time has gone on, eventually you just have to say, look, okay, guys, come on.
I just want, I so bad. I want Francis to canonize him because I want them to resist it.
That would be pretty good. You know what? The amazing thing is that is something I could totally see Bergoglio doing. I could totally see that.
Just the troll.
Yeah, he totally would.
I would so put that in his ear if I could.
Oh,
that'd be the one thing I would tell him.
Yeah, that would.
Lefebvre.
Oh, that would talk about a cringe moment for that whole group. And like, oh,
all of a sudden, the process does.
You know what though, Matt. You know how these guys are. They pick and choose what they want, and I think again,
it'll be a valid canonization because
exactly. His is, but the other ones aren't. And in the end, again, that's the question everyone should be asking themselves. What do we have the ability to question? What is our role as Catholics, as laymen, or as bishops, as priests, as archbishops? It is to obey. That is it. If there is a hierarchy to obey, you must. And Matt, I know we talk about this ad nauseum, but it's just the case. And it eventually, when you talk about these things, it's like, well, yeah, sure. If you think the Novus Ordo is a church, then of course you can have a mass in their churches. Okay. Now, if you're if you're an SSPX member who thinks that they're absolutely not the church, maybe you shouldn't be in the SSPX. I'm sorry, guys. It's that simple. It just is. I mean, I know it's not easy, but it is absolutely that simple. Matt, I wanted to get through one of these questions. Matt had a couple good questions. Which one do you want to do? We had some outside the box questions because we were trying to think about what to talk about. What should we talk about today? And we already went 40 minutes, but I'm curious. Matt threw out some outside the box questions.
Let's do this one because you just got back from a trip. Would you rather? This is one of those would you rather's. Would you rather lose all of your memories, or would you or never be able to create or make new ones? So again, would you rather lose all of your memories or never be able to make new ones? So basically, like everything from here on out wiped out, or from here on forward, you can't make any new ones.
And now I'm going to let you answer first because mine's actually
go first because you need
mine's actually pretty easy. No, mine's easy.
Oh,
actually, I have mine.
Easy.
Mine's pretty easy. Yeah.
I think, well, to me, it has to do with what do they mean by memory? Do I forget where I am and all that? I don't think they mean that. I would wipe that out of there. But
your life experiences,
right. But I think I would wipe away the past, and I think I would forget all of that there and then start here and make new ones because especially for you, like as your family gets older and as people can't see us, but as your children are getting older and there's more children, maybe they're having families and you get to see all that. Why would you would want to remember those things, right? I don't care that I remember playing as a cat when I was 4.
I'm just glad you said 4. I was like, wait, well, keep going, Matt. Please don't say last week. Yeah, exactly. Man, I can't remember playing as a cat last week. Exactly as you say, Matt. I agree with you. I think it's as a family man, I think that's a fairly easy one. I mean, the ones in the future, that's kind of where it's at. I mean, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so clearly those are the ones I want to remember. And there's a lot of my past that I certainly don't want to
forget.
And a lot of my past I do, but if I had to choose, I think I would.
Now that you're more informed, right?
I my wife's old age, yeah.
I always say, like, our brains, I feel like if I redid like high school, I'd do so much better. I feel like I'm so much, my brain is more formed. I would do a lot better. I don't know. It brings up that conversation, age appropriate at some times. I don't know.
It's an interesting question, Matt, about education, right? It is an interesting question. How much should you learn as your brain is being formed? How much should you memorize as your brain is being formed? This is a topic for another day, I suppose, because I think that is a very good question. I think it's a very
videos on this
important one, and how the classical education was much different than it is today, where you didn't just memorize, you were actually learning how to think. You learned philosophy, theology, and then you learned the sciences. That makes a whole lot more sense than just, hey, okay, here's what the book says. Now remember this date and this person, and remember it is true.
Right.
Yeah, that is, and you see, Matt, exactly how our society is formed by education. It's formed by, hey, we're going to tell you how it is and how it was, and you're not going to question anything because it's interesting. I was just reading a bit about the Nazis, and that was part of their propaganda, was to really try to enforce into their followers that you should not think, that you just do, you obey, you listen, you don't consider what is being told, you do what you should do for your country and don't overthink it. And it's like, well, I wonder why that was, why were they telling everyone not to think? It's like, well, no, that's absolutely not the case. I mean, good grief, look at St. Thomas Aquinas, what would he say about that? Be informed, learn how to, to make the right decisions and how to learn and how to understand that God must exist, and then obviously go from there.
Right.
All right, Matt,
Beautiful.
It's been fun. Seriously, it's been really nice having you back. Or
finally,
you've actually been here more than I have. But
I've been
nice. It's been nice being back together, and I appreciate you filling in the times that I was gone. Doing vacation, all that stuff. I think I'm back now. I'm kind of back to the rat race.
The rhythm.
Oh yeah, the rhythm. The fun real life of work and podcasting. Anyway, if you guys like the show, please like, share, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Let us know. As we've said before, if you guys have any topics you want us to talk about, let us know in the comment section. Doesn't mean we're going to talk about it, but we certainly might. We have done that before where we've at least mentioned it.
Yes.
So let us know. We really like hearing from you. Sometimes we have nothing to talk about. Sometimes we have lots to talk about. Sometimes it's in the middle. So let us know. And we will hopefully you guys will all hear from us next Monday. Matt,
next week.
Till then, God bless.
Sound good, Kev.